teachers union contract with the city of New York, and it's very, very, very thick. And it means that it's very difficult to actually get rid of teachers who are not performing. We checked something like 7 teachers were let go this year for bad performance out of thousands of teachers in New York. And there's so much evidence in Los Angeles as well of it taking years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to the bottom of this situation. How do you get through that impediment to good teachers?
Well, actually, let me say this. First, the states that actually have lots of teachers and teacher unions tend to be the states that have done the best in terms of academic success in this country. And the states that don't tend to be the worst. The issue is not a teacher union contract or a teacher union management contract. What we have to do with these contracts is we have to make them solution driven. We have to use them to solve problems like we have just done in the New Haven contract, like to some extent we did in the contract that was negotiated in Washington.
But the question really is about who gets kept, who gets fired, who gets merit pay.
So this is the issue. No one, myself included, wants bad teachers. We talk about bad teachers and good teachers all the time, but we don't actually spend the time talking about the overwhelming number of good teachers who do a superb job and need the tools and time and trust to do that. In terms of teachers who are not doing what they need to do, both the secretary and myself have been a Johnny One Note about changing evaluation systems. That is a key, which is what we've both talked about, and talk about it in terms of both practice and student learning. Once you do that, which we're now doing in the union ourselves, are doing in about 50 or 60 districts throughout the country, you help people, and if you can't, you counsel them or sever them out of the profession. At the end of the day, teachers, this is probably the most important thing I can say, teachers want what students need. They want to do a good job, they want the person next door to do a good job, but they know we need more than just ourselves.
Let me ask you then about the new curricula, about the new standards for measuring teachers and classroom performance. And you've identified in the president something like 5,000 failing schools where you need new principals, can you really do that?
We have to as a country. Let me be clear, we have to educate our way to a better economy. I think where we're all united, Randi, Michelle, all of us, is we feel this huge sense of urgency. In this country, we have a 25% dropout rate. That's 1.2 million students leaving our schools for the streets every single year. That is economically unsustainable, and that is morally unacceptable. We have to get that dropout rate to 0 as quick as we can. We have to dramatically increase graduation rates, and we have to make sure every single student that graduates from high school is college and career ready. So the status quo is not going to work for the country. We have to get better, and we all have to work to get to that point absolutely as fast as we can.
One of the other controversial points, and I'm going to turn to you, Michelle Rhee, is the sort of pay for performance or merit pay for teachers. You've instituted that in your school system here, and how is that working?
So we're just about to announce in the next couple of days the highest performing teachers in the district, the most effective, and then we will give merit pay to those folks, a bonus for last year, and then it will impact their pay moving forward as well, so that we will be able to pay the most effective teachers in the district almost twice as much as they used to be paid. And I think that's incredibly important, because one of the things that we have not done in public education in the past is differentiate between the types of performers that we had. And it's incredibly important to recognize and reward the people who are doing heroic work in our classrooms every single day, just as important as it is to ensure that for those who are not performing, we're swiftly moving them out of the classroom.
One of the issues I think you have said in your reform is to try to pay more teachers for things like maths and science. Try to pay teachers to go out into the poor and rural areas where they're desperately needed. Do you think that will create teachers who just now want to teach math and science? I mean, is it going to sort of subvert the balance of classes?
I would love to have that problem. Let me be clear, for the past couple of decades, we've had a shortage of math and science teachers in our country. So how are we going to compete in a globally competitive economy if our students don't have teachers who know biology and know chemistry? We've had very few incentives and frankly lots of disincentives for the hardest working, the most committed teachers and principals to go to inner city communities, to go to rural communities, to go to the children in the neighborhoods who need the most help. In education, talent matters tremendously. Great teachers are the unsung heroes in our society. They perform miracles every single day. How do we get the hardest working, the most committed to the children who need the most help? We have to be most creative. Let me be clear, financial incentives are a piece of that, but a small piece. You need a great principal, you need a supportive community. All of us have to work together. You have to create the climate and the culture where great talent want to serve where it's most needed.
But you just identified a crisis, and
right, that's what's so complicated
but
about.
But 1 million school teachers are going to be retiring by 2014 because as baby boomers retire. How do you incentivize them?
So this is what's interesting. The Gates Foundation just actually did a study of 40,000 teachers, and what they said was what is number one for them is to have a supportive, real environment in which they can work with each other and have a supportive principal. Now, we have to pay teachers competitively. It's tough right now because the economy is so bad, but we have to pay them competitively, and then we have to do some of these differentiations. As the Chancellor said, we negotiated that incentive pay plan, unlike what happened in terms of the evaluation plan. We've negotiated lots of evaluation plans all across the country, but it is about multiple things. Good teachers supported by good leaders, really good, robust curriculum, the conditions for kids so that we can eradicate the obstacles to failure. And the last thing I'll say is this. We've watched other countries outpace us, but let's look at the country that now outpaces us the most, Finland. When they start doing the things that the Secretary and I are talking about, really focus on curriculum, focus on how we help teachers be the best and the brightest, have supportive principals, have the conditions that help eradicate student failure, then kids succeed.
Let me ask you, Michelle, Rhee, and maybe it's something for both Secretary Duncan and you. You've called it a civil rights issue, education.
Absolutely.
But of course, many in the civil rights movement, amongst minorities and blacks here, are saying that, in fact, you should be giving the stimulus money not based on performance and innovative proposals, but based on need, because there's such a need. How did you deal with that in your schools? Michelle?
Well, first of all, I mean, we totally disagree with the notion that the right thing to do in terms of putting resources into the school districts is to continue the formula funding of the past that has completely failed children, and particularly poor and minority children in this country. What the Secretary and the President have done through Race to the Top is said we're going to incent innovation. We don't want to maintain the status quo. We want people who are going to be aggressive about really reforming their districts and who are serious about that, and we're going to give the resources to those states and to those districts. And I think that this idea that somehow by just continuing to give all of the districts the same amount of money over and over again is going to produce a different result is absolutely mad.
Interestingly, we have a piece of information, a graphic showing how parents feel about merit pay, and we'll put it up right now. But basically, amongst parents, 72% say yes, the teachers should be paid based on the quality of their work, and 28% say no, they should be paid standard scale. Now that's pretty much the same amongst public school parents and parents nationally. Is this the way to go?
It's a piece of the answer, but again, this stuff is complicated. Right. What we've done through Race to the Top is you're seeing the vast majority of states, almost 40 states, raise standards, higher standards for every single child. And as a country, we've dummied down standards. We've reduced them due to political pressure, and we've actually been lying to children and parents, telling them they're ready when they're not. All of us are working together to raise standards. Rewarding excellence is important. Creating wraparound services, after-school programming, tutoring, mentoring, family support, counseling is important. Figuring out how you get the best talent where you need it the most is important. Engaging parents in more creative ways is important. There's no simple answer here. All these things working together. But yes, we have to shine a spotlight on excellence. We have hundreds of thousands of teachers who are beating the odds every single day, performing miracles. We have extraordinary schools, closing achievement gaps, great districts, great states. We have to learn from excellence in education. The answers are all out there.
So we have to wrap now, but one of the things I was quickly going to ask you, it seems that the schools that you've put the money into, there's 12 states that you've given Race to the Top funds, there's 30 or more states which have had innovative programs, probably wouldn't have done that had they not had that incentive to do so.
Actually, look, I give the secretary a lot of credit for this, but we have to help all kids. And so what happens is that some of these programs, particularly the ones that are collaborative, we're going to have to see is how they work going forward, because the goal is not just some kids, but all kids.
Thank you all. We have to leave it there for this morning, but thank you, Secretary Duncan, Randi Weingarten, and Michelle Rhee for joining us in this conversation.